Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Michael, Aka Rickshaw, and welcome to Worship and Tribute Nerd. Today, we are celebrating October. We are doing several videos that is the road to Halloween because we are definitely fucking horror movie nerds. So we're doing versus videos. Everybody introduce yourself.
I'm Chase.
Richard, a.k.a. Rabbit.
Mikey, a.k.a. Mikey.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love it.
Today we've got versus. We have got Nightmare on Elm Street versus Candyman, or Freddy versus Candyman. We're going to start off by telling you a little bit about what they are. If you don't know, kids at home, does anyone want to start with the description of what Nightmare on Elm Street is?
Let's go clockwise. Go ahead, Mikey.
All right. Well, Nightmare on Elm Street is a film about a child murderer who gets burned alive, as you find out in the movie. Mm-hmm. And then somehow, I don't believe it is explained at any point in the series how he gets his nightmare abilities.
Oh, it does. They explain it kind of. You know, it's like real vague. Like a bunch of demons showed up and they're like, hey, do you want the power?
That sounds about right. But he has the ability to basically haunt your nightmares and kill you in your sleep.
Yeah.
And it's fucking rad.
We've always forgot to say this, but I'm going to start trying to remember to say this. We are all spoilers all the time. We're just going to be those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because we always accidentally do anyway.
Well, if you haven't seen
1984's Nightmare on Elm Street.
If you haven't seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies or Candyman,
You're a little behind.
for one, you're fucking up. And two, you're way behind.
Right.
Get with the times, bitch.
Right. It's like I saw a thing the other day where they were talking about the remake of Lion King, and they were like, spoiler alert for those people who haven't seen a movie that we all praised a couple of years ago.
Well, to test what you were talking about, Nightmares, his backstory, I think in Freddy's Dead, their solo 3D sequence, and they
Right.
talk about his dream demons that give him his abilities.
Also in 3, they talk about how he is the son of 1,000 psychotics.
maniacs.
Yeah, the maniacs. Yeah.
100 maniacs because his mother was raped brutally
Amanda Kruger.
by
Amanda Kruger.
So, anyways,
Psychopaths.
It's, you know,
That was my name.
It's like it's a sleep demon. To the vaguest way possible, it's like these kids fall asleep and they start seeing Freddy, and they all talk about it with each other, which spreads the lore a little more, and then they all start dreaming, and anything that happens in their dreams is real.
Yep.
So, it's one of my personal favorite franchises of all time.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Rabbit's like,
No, it's great. I love it.
just
Not
trying
against it at all.
Oh yeah. No. Why are you against it, dude?
But
What's your problem with Nightmare on Elm Street?
God fucking damn it.
I feel like I'm going to go with the underdog, though, since we're talking about it. I feel like I'm going to stick up for Candyman in this video. Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people sucking on Freddy's dick, and I gotta be the one. I gotta be the one to stand up for Candyman.
To the base for me with that.
Moving on to the verses. Candyman is the other movie.
All right,
What's Candyman about?
Candyman was a slave,
Right.
fell in love with a white girl, his master's daughter,
Right.
got her pregnant.
Well, hang on a second. I don't think he was a slave, was he?
He was a slave.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't think they said because he was
No,
like
he was a slave.
well-educated and everything is what they were saying.
No, it was
Later,
That's like the lore. Like
later on in
up.
the franchise, they gave him more of a backstory. The first movie was a little left
Because I
to
swear when she's talking to that dude that he says that her father commissioned him to paint a picture of her,
No.
and then they bang.
Well, he may have been talented painter, but he was
Because he was like a well-educated man and everything like that.
The continuity between the three films may be a little skewed, but
Right.
in Farewell to the Flesh, definitely slave's daughter, just like Rabbit was saying.
Okay.
And that's kind of why whenever there's like a whole mob of people like killing him. Well, did we get to that part? Okay, so
Not yet.
All right, I'll let you continue. Sorry.
go ahead.
So he was a slave. He fell in love with his master's daughter, impregnated her. Then the dad found out. Then there was a whole mob. They pinned him down. They sliced off his right hand. And
with the worst fucking kind of saw.
Yeah, it was
fine.
It was like a little
grab the dingiest one.
the rustiest, dirtiest saw you could find, which is anyway. Then they covered him in honey, and then through some sort of
Shitty
paranormal
CGI
activity.
bees came. Yeah.
A bunch of bees came and stung him all over his body, and then he dies.
Right.
But his soul gets trapped in a mirror, and his wife or the girl that he impregnated kept the mirror, and that keeps him alive.
Okay. And you know,
So
it's
that is
funny.
the
It's funny
Candyman
that he
lore,
said
yeah.
that because we just watched 2 earlier, and he's like they smeared the honey on him, and by some sort of supernatural, it's like they didn't plan it because it was a bad plan because the tree with the bees in it was like way over there.
Way over there.
Yeah.
Dude,
I mean,
like-
if you watch it, there's like a
Right.
horde of bees that just come out of nowhere.
Right,
Billion
right.
bees decided
Yeah.
to leave their tree branches where I guess bees stay.
So
And
I
They're
feel like it was more.
They were like,
I feel like it was more of a supernatural activity.
sick
and not
those
just
bees
like,
on them that you trained.
Yeah. Because bees aren't just like, oh, honey,
Yeah.
let's go
no.
get it. No,
Yeah.
they go get flowers and shit. And
The-
then
yeah.
They pollinate
make
shit
honey.
and then
Yeah.
they make honey.
The
Yeah.
bees were like, I smell
they're not Winnie the
honey.
Pooh bees. They don't just
smell-
like smell honey and like go to it.
I smell a
Right.
guy we need to kill right now.
Unless,
Yeah.
unless they knew they suspected that he stole their honey, and they were
Oh,
retaliating.
Right.
New theory.
well,
New
he's-
theory alert.
he did steal some honey.
Oh,
Oh, very good. Very good.
that white girl honey.
He stole some honey, that white honey. You know.
Okay, so I think, you know, like the lure at this point of the verses, the lure on both ends is pretty rad. You know what I mean? Like these are the type of old school stories that are like some shit you would hear before you went to bed. And
They're they're both urban myths or urban legends
Mm-hmm.
type stories.
I remember when I was a kid, I would have these vivid nightmares of Freddy, like clawing the fuck out of me, and me waking up being like, "Ah, my arm hurts," and then I'm like, maybe it doesn't.
Maybe it doesn't.
No, like
But there's snakes in the bed.
going to the video store as a small child,
Mm-hmm.
like walking through that whole section would just like creep me the fuck out.
Right.
Like seeing just the covers of the movies
Yeah,
and like
I feel like we don't
Cover art.
we
Cover
don't-
art was the
Yeah,
best
it would
we
just,
don't
like,
advertising.
freak
try
me out,
anymore. Like in the modern horror movies, they don't try with the art because
No.
it's not creeping you out. You know what I mean? Like it's just like
It's
very
just-
minimal. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Flipping through thumbnails.
back in the
and-
day, you're like, there's a chimney with Santa Claus's arm coming out with a fucking axe.
Fucking
and, like,
Silent Night, Deadly Night. Hell
or,
yeah, dude.
or Child's Play 2, you're like, motherfucking Chucky chopping off a Jack in
Yeah.
the Box's head. Now they're just like, what? I don't know.
Throw the title up there and it's good.
yeah.
It. And it's like white background and then the clown's eyes. Yeah, cool. Come on, give me Tim Curry. I'm just kidding. So anyways,
So that's the thing. Yeah.
as a movie, who wins? Everyone go. Mikey, you first.
Mikey, you first.
If we were just gonna base it strictly off of the first movies, I would have to go with Candyman is the better movie as far as the
You need to
first
talk into your
in the.
mic.
I am. God fucking damn it.
It's your mustache just filtering your sounds, bro.
What I was saying was that I feel like if you're just going to compare the first Nightmare on Elm Street and the first Candyman movie, I think the first Candyman movie is better as a movie
Right.
than the first
Like
Nightmare
it
on Elm
wasn't
Street.
as dated in certain parts.
Yeah.
Well,
'cause-
it's also like 10 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
One was
Yeah.
1984 and one was
Because,
1992.
man, I'll be honest.
92,
So it's
Like,
like the difference in
and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this, and I still love the movie, but the first Nightmare on Elm Street's kind of whack.
I mean,
Like Freddy to me
I
is
disagree,
not
actually.
Yeah, I
intimidating at
disagree.
all. Like I don't
He
think
wasn't
he's
supposed to
scary
be.
at all.
well,
And they kept him in the shadows, and he was just.
Yeah, he didn't
Well,
look
it's
as
honestly
imposing to me or any
it's
of that
very
stuff.
similar to Candyman because they keep you in the dark for a lot of the movie
Right.
about what who we're even talking about looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like 3/4 of the way before you even get a reveal, like
Of
especially
what
in
Candyman looks like?
Candyman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I
for
think
sure.
Freddy and
Candyman, it
Cameron.
was like 40 minutes into the movie before we see
Yeah.
Tony Todd show up as Candyman.
Right.
yeah.
You know,
And
40 minutes in.
Freddy was
Damn, is it really
Like-
that long?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
When does Shreddy or
well.
Freddy. Well,
I mean,
Shreddy,
it's not that. It's
Freddy
not,
Krueger shows up. He shows up soon because they the way the first movie they try to trick you with Tina being the lead girl, the final girl.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they kill her off. Like I think it's her death is 18 minutes in the movie.
yeah.
So it's like Freddy shows up soon because it's that dream sequence where he's doing his arms Remember
Yeah.
when he's in the alleyway, but it's all in shadows and all dark.
Dude, yeah, that shit's sick. Or when he
So-
rips off the top of his
Yeah,
head.
yeah. That was all within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
All within.
Right. So I guess it was pretty quick for.
Yeah, yeah. Freddy was.
Freddy.
They moved it along pretty well, but
But they didn't give you a full reveal for,
No,
for
no,
a
no,
while.
for a while.
Like
Yeah.
it was in the boiler room or some shit.
Right.
Where he's like, ha ha ha. I love Freddy, man. He's
I
fucking tight.
enjoy Freddy.
But anyways, Mike, you gonna change your mind yet?
No.
You going Candyman?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going As far as the first movies go, I love the first Nightmare on Elm Street for sure, but after watching them so recently, I'm like, you know what? I think Candyman is a little bit better. I had more fun with it than I did with the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
I feel, in my personal opinion, I feel that as far as like the deaths go, Nightmare on Elm Street wins,
Right.
hands
Well,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, they got weird with it.
Yeah.
Like
They got
they
weird with it.
they
As,
built the
like,
set upside down.
Based
and,
on the, you
and
know,
then shit in the hole.
the first of each franchise,
right.
the deaths in A Nightmare were far better than
Yeah,
Candyman.
Johnny Depp's death scene is fucking sick.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. The way they did that, and it was all practical.
I feel.
was just-
I mean, that's what makes the Freddy movies, though. Every death is very specific,
Right.
Yeah.
And like, if you've got a weird kid that has weird dreams, then you've got like an even better one. You know what I mean? An even better death on your hands. So it's just different. Like, it's different for me. It's hard to put against each other. I think my biased opinion makes Freddy win because I just know his whole catalog. You know what I mean? But like as a movie, they're both comparable because I had fucking nightmares about both. Like I remember watching Freddy and just being like, that motherfucker got me last night. You know what I mean? And then I remember seeing Candyman. Me and my brother were like really into it, and whenever I watched that, I was like, I'm not sleeping in a fucking room with mirrors. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like,
still can't.
Not doing
really.
Mirrors at night, yeah. As a 36-year-old man, I'm still freaked out. I'm turning the lights on when I go to the bathroom immediately.
Mirrors
I'm
are
like,
still creepy.
who's
at
this
night.
motherfucker looking at me right? Oh, that's me. That's me. Yeah.
Well, I knew walking into this, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna be hard on for Freddy, right? But you made a good point. Is like watching Candyman now and Nightmare on Elm Street now, opposed to when I was 12, 13, is Candyman's story, as far as just a movie go. We're talking about movies,
Right.
not supernatural figures.
Right.
Is like, you know, it's a social commentary on whatever is going on with that and everything like that. I think story wise, the first Candyman is better than the first Nightmare on Elm Street. But if I had 2 hours
To cram.
left to live, and you were like, "Hey man, you're gonna watch Candyman, you're gonna watch Nightmare. I'm gonna watch Nightmare
I
every
texted
day.
you a week ago.
Every day, every day. If I had 2 hours,
All right.
I'm gonna watch Nightmare every
So,
time
I
because
think-
I personally I enjoy Nightmare better. Candyman's probably a better story. I think it's better written than the first one, and I love Wes
Yeah.
Craven. Like Wes Craven is like, yeah, put him way up there as far
Right.
as writers, directors, whatever.
He's like
but
the Stanley of horror.
yeah. He's made really,
In my mind.
really, really good shit. But Candyman, I love that story. That first movie was amazing, and I didn't appreciate it as much as a child or a kid or whatever when I was watching my slasher flicks back in the day. Like I shit on Candyman when I was a kid. I was like, man, one dude dies this movie, and then so
I just think, like that's the perfect thing about a horror movie supervillain. It's like you just set them up with a couple of quips and they're fucking badass. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, let's see here. We got to make him look like, oh, what if he's burned? That's fucking scary, man. Yeah, let's use
Yeah.
that. How's he going to kill you? In your nightmares. You know what I mean? Or like fucking Candyman. He's a fucking 8 foot tall black dude with a hook for a fucking hand.
8-foot tall black dude.
And you know what? And you know what he's gonna say in his movie? He's gonna be like, "I'm gonna fucking cut you from groin to gullet.
groin
Yeah.
to gullet.
I'm gonna cut your groin to gullet."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "What the fuck?" And they don't even like. He's already scary as fuck. They don't even dress him up. He's just like, "I'm fucking scary."
well, and that's the thing about his voice. And like
He's
they were
got
talking
that-
about the sexuality of that movie, and
He's
like
got that voice.
Buddy just texted me. He's like, "Man, it makes you feel scared and tingly at the same time." You know? So
It's
You know what they should
gives you a fear boner is what it gives you.
But you know what? In a
Fear boner.
or it gets you scare-roused.
Scarouse. They should have like Halloween checks for that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's like I'm trying to get a tug job while being scared
Tug
as
job.
fuck.
You know.
A Freddy glove job.
I feel like that would be painful.
Yeah. As
Hey, you
opposed
gotta do
to
what you gotta do.
As
It's
opposed
Halloween.
to a hook job. You want a hook job?
Hook job, you know. Well, hey, we could
Rusty trombone.
we could double
with that
team
hook,
it.
It's
you know?
right in the curve of the.
We could double
It's right
team
in
it. Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I right? Am I right?
Yeah. But listen to this though. Hear me out. Would it have been better if instead of that Candyman, we got what's his name? We always
Larry
talked.
Fishburne? Is
Larry
that
Fishburne.
Not Larry Fishburne. No, the fucking dude with the gap in his teeth.
Keith David?
Keith
Keith David,
Fucking
yeah.
David.
Can you imagine a Keith David
Hey, I'm
Candyman?
Keith David.
feel
My
like that would
blood,
still
my
kinda
blood is
work.
good, McCready.
I feel like that would still kind of work.
Yeah,
Although he's
fucking
work.
not quite like Tony Todd's voice is just
He'd be like,
so fucking awesome.
I'm gonna cut you up.
Well, that's what I heard. They were
Grow in
talking
the
about
gullet.
the storytelling and the gothicness of like the way the OG Frankenstein was.
Yeah.
But they took that and combined it with the sexuality of like Dracula. And then like the old days. So it's like
Yeah,
That's what he was. He was Dracula sexy.
Yeah.
Dracula.
He's like, I'm gonna get you, white girl.
I know. I like
It
the
is-
fact. The fact
I am the writing on the walls.
The fact
the
that-
whispers in the classroom.
that he, Candyman has white girl victims. It's like, that. Like he could still get you. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
You know. There's lots
Well,
of
and
guys
that was the thing
that
is
die
like
too.
the director and the writer of this movie met with the NAACP and they were like, "Hey, is this cool?" And they were like, "Yeah, no problem." But then of course, in the outrage culture we live in now, everybody's retroactively going back and being like, "Hey, why is like these dudes going after all white chicks and stuff?" It's like, come on, man. Like it's just.
I mean, I
Well,
don't.
the
I don't-
movies have already been made,
Yeah,
so you
it's
can't
like,
go back
why,
and change them.
Why are
Sorry.
people going after bullshit? Like,
I mean, I thought he just killed everyone. Honestly,
He does.
Like,
He does kill. He
kills
kills
whoever
everyone.
summons
But
him.
he wants
Yeah.
the white girl that he fell in love with.
Yeah,
There's
right,
nothing
right.
wrong with that.
No, I agree.
Right.
That seems progressive, actually. So you shouldn't be
Right.
I agree.
crying about that.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with ordering
That's
the
an
same
interracial
shit.
marriage.
When I go to
That's-
IHOP, I get the same shit every time. Okay, chicken and waffles. God damn it, that's what I want. You know it.
I hope.
Nobody's mad about that. Hey, why you always order chicken and waffles? This is what's wrong with society. Like what I like. God damn it.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So it seems like we're 2-2 right now.
Is it 2 and 2?
It's 2 for Candyman,
'Cause-
2 for Nightmare.
So that's my. Okay, so overall voting, is that what we're doing right now?
I guess.
Let's
I
do
think.
some
Is that
overall
what we just did?
voting.
Oh yeah,
Is
because
that
you
what we
guys
just
were
did?
Nightmare.
Because I
Y'all were
voted-
Candyman.
I voted
we
Nightmare.
were Freddy.
Story wise, yes. Me and Mikey, I think we're.
For
Yep.
for origin movies.
Yes.
For,
Because
origin
although
movies.
looking in the mirror and saying a name and it coming for you is fucking scary as shit.
Yeah.
But that's what. Okay.
The nightmare is the scariest thing. Okay.
Well, so now we're getting into the franchise,
Yes.
or the lore of the characters.
because everyone has to go to sleep. Okay. Not
Yeah.
everyone has to look in the mirror and
Say
say
Candyman.
Yeah, it's kind of like you make
you
that
choose,
choice.
you
Yeah,
choose to do
right.
that. Yeah,
because it's usually a cocky person that's like, I don't believe in the Candyman.
yeah.
Give me a
It's
fucking
100%
mirror.
of the time. So I don't believe in the Candyman. I'll say it.
Yeah.
Candyman.
Right, right,
And
right.
then he's dead.
Yeah,
Or you,
and then they got a hook up their butt, and he's going,
or you get ripped in half by a hook. Yeah.
Yeah, the grunting noises.
yeah,
By the way,
he's
it's
straight
like
up.
real
No, that's the
terrifying.
thing is, I wrote down in my notes, I was like, he really went to town on that guy's gullet or whatever, because
Whoa,
like
you
there's
start
a
at the
part-
fucking groin.
Wait, yeah,
I
he
mean-
goes because in this scene he's like, bah! And then the camera like goes off screen or something, and he's going,
And you hear like the ripping.
Yeah.
and,
I mean,
dude,
that's
That's a tough-
that's
that was a tough
his
kill, man.
That's his move, though.
Yeah,
that's
he's
his
probably
one,
got
that's his
one
finisher.
huge
That's
arm.
his one. That's his,
one arm
if he
is
was in the WWE, that was
Yeah.
be his finishing move. That's
He's
what he
gonna
does.
do
to
it.
His
everyone.
finisher
He has a
super difficult.
catchphrase that goes along with it.
From groin to gullet.
Going
Yeah.
to gullet.
yeah,
That's his move. Like, and you're done.
he just holds the hook up, and everyone's like, yeah, and then he's like, should I? Yeah. And then he's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's
That'd
tough.
be a sick match, dude. Just saying.
Yeah. That's kind of what we're doing.
I mean, shit. I never looked at it like they were pro wrestlers
Yeah.
because Freddy coming out and being like, he's like, ha ha!
How sweet, fresh meat.
Dude, wrestling's awesome too. I know it's a little off subject, but wrestling's pretty badass also.
How about that Billy Kidman in WCW Nitro? I don't know.
I don't know. All right, what's next?
How about that Macho Man?
Next.
Oh, what's next? Okay, so we kind of were already getting into the deaths, but like, so let's do Candyman. Give our best death for Candyman and Nightmare. Start over here.
Are we talking like as a franchise?
Yeah.
Franchise.
Franchise, sure. The whole motherfucker. The whole shabazz.
Well, to be completely transparent, I've only seen the first Candyman movie.
Okay. So part 2, honestly, Candyman 2, and we were saying it's like a little bit better because like
It's the best of the franchise.
yeah, the story rolls faster and you get more deaths, and it's like instead of
Because
like
the first movie, like most of them, all but the psychiatrist are like off-screen deaths.
For the most part.
There was just 2 in the first. And the first
Yeah.
kill was off screen, and then the psychiatrist gets the.
Well,
They show like,
oh yeah, because I guess you don't.
that was the groin to gullet kill that he likes to advertise.
I guess she doesn't kill anybody. The first one, it's just the dog that gets it, which
that's
really-
very
see,
sad.
which
That's
really
very
upset
sad.
my
that's
wife.
that's another thing
Very
about
sad.
Candyman 2 is like not necessarily a lot of people had to die for it to be kind of fucking brutal, because like the first scene where Candyman takes her, she wakes up covered in blood. She's like, "What the fuck? There's blood everywhere." To where,
and
to
she opens
where,
the door, there's a
to where
fucking
you're like,
dog corpse
"Ugh."
there.
And then she opens the door, the dog's fucking head's just laying in a puddle of blood, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Yep.
And you know, there's another scene where she's being arrested, and like you were saying earlier, and they make her like take off her top and like lift up her boobs because the cop's searching her. And I was like, is this really necessary? But then I was like, but it adds to how tense the movie is, and how
sure.
brutal it is.
She was just fucking.
It's like, take off your
Caked in
brassiere
blood,
and throw
dude.
it to me.
And she's just like, the whole scene is her like, why?
Yeah.
And the cop's just like,
Do it.
go on ahead.
Anyway,
right.
back to the subject.
been a long time
I'll
in
take the
county.
helm. I'll take
Go
it.
ahead.
But Candyman 2, when her husband gets gutted. That's
Okay.
the best death. They
Right.
actually show him like gut the dude, lift him
yeah.
up off the ground, and then
nice.
like you see the hook going like all the way
Yeah.
up to his neck,
Right.
and then he's fucking done so.
Shout out to Practical Effects,
Yeah.
by the
Yeah,
way.
for
And
real.
that was the first time from in the franchise from when it started that you actually see him
Kill.
gut somebody
Yeah.
Right.
from groin to gullet.
I
or
mean,
whatever
you know,
yeah.
the psychiatrist was more like just like,
from the back.
you
it
just
was
heard his
pretty-
butt ripping.
And
It was
then
Heard his butt ripping.
I will say, as far
spraying.
as Nightmare goes, from the movies I've seen, honestly, I think the first movie, what is it, Tina,
Tina,
blonde chick?
The
When
drug
she's-
out of the room.
when she's like crawling up the wall
Oh,
and
yeah.
like floating around, and then there's just blood everywhere.
and it's like
That was legit.
right between
was
her
awesome.
tits.
That was a
right?
badass death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a badass
And it was
kill.
the first movie, and it was all practical. Like
Yep.
they had the rotating room shit, and that was a brutal ass death.
That was sick.
That was.
But
That was one of the deaths where out loud I was just like, "Oh fuck!"
yeah,
Yeah, they just drug her ass.
You know it's good when you
I-
just,
Old Rod back in the corner is like, God damn it!
oh
They're
I'm
gonna
gonna-
pin this on me.
I'm gonna agree with Rabbit on the Candyman death for sure. Like that was the best one. I mean, two had a bunch of different ones, but that one was just like. That was like fucking like once again it was like the wrestling move. He was just like dude in the air with a hook up his butt like yeah yeah.
It's fucking Lex Luger with a torture rack.
And then he's like should I yeah. But as far as the Nightmare movies, like 3, I'm gonna be honest, 3 was like the best fucking Nightmare on Elm Street.
Agreed. Agreed.
And That one had so many good deaths that it's just
Welcome to primetime.
yeah.
Bitch.
That's
Yeah.
the best one of the whole fucking movie because
When she's hanging there.
yeah,
just, like,
when she's
hanging.
just like
Yeah.
head
Yeah,
into
that's
out of
actually
their
head in the
really
TV.
fucking brutal. Like,
It is brutal.
Also,
God.
it's like whenever people think of Freddy, that's straight up the
Right.
one thing everybody thinks of. Welcome to primetime, bitch.
Yeah.
You know, like
the way that effect
that's
with
it.
the like his arms are like just TV
yeah,
parts,
or when his head
Yeah.
comes
And the
out
way
too,
his
it's
head
like
comes out of the
it's like
TV, it's
nasty
so
gel.
fucking sick.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, but there
Great
is a
death.
lot of crazy deaths in the whole franchise, though, because there's so many of them, and some of them are real nasty. Like the one where he's like, the chick's trying to lose weight or whatever, so she dreams about that, and it's like Freddy stuffing her face, and she's just like, and her fucking face is
Yeah.
blowing up and shit. That was like so nasty, dude. And then she had cockroach arms or some shit right after a while.
No, that was the.
Diff-
That was my favorite kill.
Oh,
I was gonna
okay.
come in
Oh,
there.
There you go.
That was
ahead.
that
What
was
you
the
got?
workout chick.
Right.
Remember the chick that was super into fitness?
Right.
She's in working out, and then like Freddy's like, okay, let's go. And then so she's working out, and
okay.
she makes some bug arms.
Yeah.
And she's crawling through the fucking thing. That was my favorite. I think that also from part 3, because she was like, I think she was a junkie at first. No.
Oh, that's
Yeah, and
you
that's
know
the
what? I
chick.
have a whole fucking thing of notes that I have not looked at
that
once.
was that the same chick
I don't
as
think
the?
that's in 3.
Was that the same chick as the syringe fingers? It might not be in 3.
Oh no, that girl was the junkie.
That was a junkie. Okay, I'm
Junkie
getting
girl,
two
and
things
she gets
combined. But there was
yeah.
the one girl who's super into fitness, and she's working out, and he turns her
Yeah,
pretty
needle
much into a
fingers.
bug in her dream.
That's got to be in one of the later
Man,
ones.
might
I
be
think
one
it
of the later
is. I
ones.
think it is. But I was gonna say that because I wrote down some notes when I was watching it. The fucking another nasty ass death is like the junkie. Like
Yeah.
he fucking comes out with like
Yeah, he's got
needle
heroin-
fingers,
needles,
and
and
he's like,
then her fucking her like
Her-
track
oh, yeah,
marks
oh, I know.
start
They were
they start puckering.
yeah.
They're like puckering, like they want it so bad, and
Oh,
then he
yeah.
fucking stabs her with the needles.
And he
I was
basically like
oh my
orgasms, and he
God.
goes,
Yeah.
What a rush! Okay, well let's. I will just scrap that one and go to the puppet dude.
Yes.
Like, that
Yeah.
was
Yep.
awesome. That was an awesome scene.
Yeah.
All practical. We're going back to all practical.
Yeah.
So the dude's like, he's doing his fucking thing, and he just
cuts
leaps him off the
he
building.
cuts his hands and his feet,
right.
and then
He
his
pulls
fucking
his tendons
yeah.
out.
well, he cuts him from like the wrist up
Yeah.
Yeah.
on his arms,
the
and then like
thighs
from
down.
the thighs down to his
That is
feet.
for sure part 3.
And it's
Yeah, that's 3,
Yeah.
and that's
and then Freddy-
that was,
now him just
Freddy's
falling off wasn't necessarily
No, it
super
wouldn't have.
climactic, but that just scene,
Yeah.
when he's walking through the
yeah,
fucking
it's
hallways.
fucking
Yeah.
and then
brutal,
little
dude.
puppet ass Freddy walking around.
and when they show like the close up of like his feet and like his
Yeah,
tendons
dude.
coming out of the top
Yep.
of his feet, it's actually really fucking gross looking.
That was great.
Yeah.
And then as far as Candyman goes, let's go back to part 2. Fucking the dude that's getting the bee stings. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
he comes
Oh,
in
yeah,
towards
yeah.
the end of the movie, and he throws him through the sheet metal thing, and he's just all bubbled
like a
up.
Cabbage
all
Patch Kid,
bubbled up. Yeah. So
like Bee Berry or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's when they introduce more bee kills into Farewell to Flesh or whatever. So
You're right.
One, yeah.
Bee kills.
bee kills.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And even just like the actor having all those bees. In his
yeah,
mouth.
that was nuts.
Oh,
'cause
yeah,
they
like-
were
Like-
legit bees.
Yeah.
And they sent him out of his chest because he had that, he pulled his coat.
Oh. All right.
He pulled his coat open. Is that where we're done? Stop.
Yeah. Hold on.
We're gonna
a minute.
cut.
Let's fix the camera.
I am.
Leave that in, please. I want to see. I want to see where in the video where he smacks the phone.
Fucking, I just smacked it. Well,
And go.
You were talking about Tina's death in the first movie. I think they do that to a little bit better effect in Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh.
I think she's the nanny or some shit when they're in the hospital, and the kid can see Freddy, but
Yeah.
like nobody else can. So it like keeps cutting back from like the kid's perspective of him seeing Freddy doing this shit to the chick, and then then to the adult's perspective of her just fucking getting tossed around the room, blood going everywhere. Anyway, I just like it's
Yeah.
super fucking. But I still love that in the first movie.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp's death scene's still my favorite. Like just the
Yeah. The big
and like the
blood dump.
reactions that people are just like vomiting and like shit
Right,
like that.
yeah. That
It's
Johnny
so
Depp
fucking
scene was
awesome.
The similarities in why we paired them.
I feel like, well, for one, they both have a weapon for a hand.
Yep.
That's the obvious.
Is it
you know,
on the same hand for both of them?
A hook.
Is it they're both
It's the
their right hand?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
A hook on the right
I
hand and
didn't even-
the knife glove. There's also like a lore or a urban myth behind both characters.
Mm-hmm.
So
that like
with-
gives them their power.
that gives them
Yeah.
their power. So
and they're not
Candyman,
like walking around in the real world.
Yeah, you have to
you
like
know,
you
so
have to
they're
call Candyman through the mirror.
Right.
And with Freddy, you have to like
Have heard or something.
heard about him and
Yeah.
remember
Right.
his name
Mm-hmm.
to like know who he is. And
Yep.
there's also like the paranormal,
Right.
Yeah.
I guess, aspect of it of both.
So I'm like marathoned all of them, and like I remember thinking like that the Freddy movies got shittier later on, but then I watched them all and they're all fucking good,
Yeah.
like all the way through. Even Freddy's Dead, I remember thinking, oh, that movie sucked, before its time. And then I watched it and I was like, yes, this movie was awesome
The
too.
only one that I would really shit on would be The Dream Child. And I still enjoyed The Dream Child.
See, I thought part 2 was less enjoyable than the rest of them.
I thought part 2 had its redeeming
Part 2
qualities.
is just like so
It's
out
just
of left
real
field.
dark, and
Yeah.
then obviously the homosexual undertones that the director snuck in and later admitted to.
I skipped part 2, so
Right? Okay. It's just the most.
You're all my
It's
children now. That's
I
my
thought,
favorite. That
I
is my
thought
favorite
part
from
2
that,
was
though.
cool. I mean, that poolside scene, I thought it was really cool. They had some cool, they're really cool effects in part 2. But, like, it's by far one of the best entries in the series or the franchise. And, then they followed it up with part 3. Part 3 is by far the majority-wise probably what most people would say was probably the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part 2 is a little underrated, but
yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
I feel like when with part 3, you get what a lot of people, when they think of Freddy, what makes Freddy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like his little smart ass remarks
Right.
and saying "bitch" after everything,
Yeah.
and
He's
just
got-
shit like
Well,
that.
he's got
Primetime
he's got the
bitch.
charisma.
Yeah,
that that almost no other like big bad has.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And part 2 or like part 3 introduced or brought Freddy more along as far as his gags and his bits and stuff like that. Part 2 tried to keep Freddy super dark, but the story
Right.
story wise was super cheesy.
It was like before they Thor Ragnaroked it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
They
right,
were
right,
like,
right.
everyone was like, it's pretty cool. It's a little too serious though.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
they
all of
kept
a
Freddy.
sudden,
They kept Freddy super dark, and they
Yeah.
tried to make it super scary. But everybody, they had a laugh.
right.
And if they would have if they would have took the Freddy from part 3 and introduced him to part 2, I think it would have been a much better movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Wes Craven initially wanted Freddy to be like a silent stalker type,
Right.
like Mike Myers or Jason, and that was his like dream. And I think that's or like a darker,
Right.
more sinister villain, which is what you get in like what is it, 5 or 6?
Oh well, the new
The
Nightmare.
New Nightmare.
Nightmare.
New Nightmare.
New
That's what you
Nightmare.
get because Wes Craven came back and actually directed that one.
Right.
Right.
And that was like his Freddy in his mind. It was like a darker Freddy. But the Freddy that everybody knows and loves is like
3 and 4. And
Oh, I forgot.
Freddy's
funny.
So
dead. The
I
funny,
forgot
like-
the fucking most intense and awesome scene is in part 3. Whenever Patricia Arquette like first she like comes to save someone or something, but it's like Freddy's like a fucking huge
Oh, the
snake,
snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah,
like
God, he eats
he's
her,
like
yeah.
When he's-
eating her up.
right before that when he's in the carpet and then he goes up the wall and the wall like shatters and shit. Like that was an amazing practical
Right.
effect.
Yeah, that scene they actually when they filmed it, they shot it in reverse basically, and then played it backwards, and that's so they get that effect.
Right.
I love that scene when Nancy comes to save her, and he kind of realizes who she is. He like does like a double take, and he's like, you in snake form was so fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, and it's like
Also, when he first grabs her, like he grabs her by the legs, and then he slams her on the ground.
Yep.
It's like really brutal.
yeah,
Like,
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out practical effects.
Yes.
Shout out.
Yes. Yes.
Every day.
Oh, so I watched the remake of Freddy, and it had its moments that were pretty cool,
Yeah.
but it tried to be too 2010, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The things I hate about that is like they would take like things that they did practical in
Yeah.
the first movie.
Yeah.
Like for example,
The wall thing.
the wall thing. Yeah, they CGI'd that and
Yeah.
it looked like
It
It looked like
garbage.
shit.
Looked
No,
awful.
but
It looks
all the
fucking
CGI,
awesome
all the CGI
in
in
the
that
first
movie
movie.
was so bad.
Yeah.
And it's like you watch these movies, and that's what I was talking about this earlier. Like they filmed the prequel of The Thing with all practical effects, but then like apparently the movie company was like, CGI is the standard,
Right.
And like there's a point where it's like, why is CGI the standard? You just want to make the movie look like shit,
Yeah.
like
And
literally.
it sucks because like I really think that prequel to the thing would have been. I still really like it,
Right.
but could have been maybe not as good as the original, but like real fucking close in
Yeah.
my opinion. If
Well,
they
and
would
the
have just
thing
left
was-
it practical.
If you have practical effects today, 2019, if you have them, you can like enhance them with CGI.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can make them
Still
look
do.
so much
Right.
better.
Yeah.
Still do.
But yeah,
Even
like-
the thing I
Of
was
course.
listening to about the original Nightmare with Rod. Remember when he was in the jail cell and they used the blanket wrapped around his neck while he's asleep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today, that would have been a CGI blanket. They would have made him fucking flop around a little bit, and it would have been good. It's like because practical effects, more time, more money, whatever, and it hurts the films.
Yeah,
that
because all the way through that film, the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, I was like, oh, why
Yeah.
did they even fucking do that? You know what I
Right.
mean? It had a couple of moments, but it was just,
I think-
in the end,
Speaking of CGI and everything, one scene I think could have possibly benefited from some CGI special effects current day on the third movie, the skeleton fight.
oh yeah, yeah, the skeleton fight,
That
yeah.
you know what that reminded me of though, and I kind of loved it was Army of
I
Darkness.
know,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Can we get Sam Raimi in here to direct the scene? Okay, cool.
I feel that he had a hand in that.
Well, it's
somewhat,
funny
because
though,
they were
that
like
he
best
was-
friends.
That he's like fighting him in the dream, and then he's like, oh, gotta go.
Yeah.
He's like,
Gotta
he's
go.
like-
I like how he turns his hand. He's like senses it.
yeah. And then he's like, now I'm a skeleton in real life. What's up?
That scene is so cheesy, but it's so.
and then when
awesome
he's
at the
done,
same
he's
time.
just like, and it falls
Yeah.
into a
Yeah.
pile.
The,
I love
the
after
junkyard
he
scene,
kicks-
right?
Yeah.
I love when he kicks the shit out of him, and after he throws the fucking dirt on the dude, and he's like, yeah, and then he like, all right, I'm done. Collapse, and just the bones hit the ground.
Right.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, shout out fucking John Saxon in these movies. That's what I loved about old 80s slasher flicks is like they bring in some, vet
Saxophone.
actor. Vet actor.
Right.
You got,
Yeah.
your
Saxon. get
your
it?
your Betsy Palmers, your John Saxons, and I love those dudes. Like they were like John Saxon killed it in Nightmare 1. I will say
and
that.
2 or
Yeah.
3.
Was it 3?
They
He
bring
came
him
back
back for
in 3
3,
because
yeah.
they
was-
killed him off in 3, right?
Yeah.
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 And they killed him
But he
off.
came back because
Also, like some of the deaths are so like out there that you're like, what the fuck was that? Like the scene where the boyfriend. It's like part 5, maybe. Yeah, part 5. So the boyfriend is like going somewhere on his motorcycle, and he's like falling asleep or whatever, and he's like going real fucking fast, and then all of a sudden Freddy's like in the console,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his like his eyes are all like mechanical, and his mouth, and he's like, hey bitch, you falling. He's like, don't fucking
bitch.
sleep and drive or something, and then all of these like all of the wires and like the
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
gears and shit on the motorcycle start wrapping up his arms and shit.
Yeah.
And it keeps going, and then the next scene it shows him, he's like a fucking like circuitry like
Oh,
monstrosity.
man.
He's
I
he just
forgot
looks
about that.
like,
Yeah, dude.
It looks weird to where you could only see this part of his face, and the rest of it is just like circuits and gadgets.
All blue and
and
white
he's like
wires and
completely
fucking-
wired into the motorcycle to where it's just like one big like
Death machine.
like Spawn, Spawn the
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
when he's like when he's the motorcycle or whatever.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
reminds me of that. But I was just like,
motorcycle. Yes.
I was as I watched it, I was like, who on set was like, let's make him like get wrapped up in wires, and then eventually he's like some weirdo fucking circuitry man. It's like it reminded me of the Borg.
Well, I will say it's a good like Candyman and Freddy, two great, because one thing, they did not adhere to the rules of horror.
Right.
Like, they didn't fall in those tropes as like if you fucking have premarital sex or do drugs or drink or whatever.
Right.
Like there was a couple of times in Nightmare 1 where they were like, the
Getting freaky.
Rod and Tina is
They were
right
fucking,
when
and then they
Freddy
both-
comes. But
yeah.
other than that, like Candyman or Freddy, they didn't.
Right. You didn't have to fuck.
You didn't have to fuck.
To
You
die.
didn't have to
You
smoke
dead
weed,
anyways.
or you didn't have to drink. So
I mean,
yeah,
you did,
the
but-
rules didn't apply to these
Right.
guys. So
Yeah.
very good comparison, I will say.
Well, does that lead us into
What?
who's the best? Who wins?
So I vote Freddy. What do you say, Rabbit? Give it a vote.
I mean, okay. So now we're getting into like 1v1 Freddy versus Candyman.
As a
Like,
franchise,
if they
Freddy's the
stood
winner.
off against each other, what
Right.
would happen?
If they
Is that what we're
as
getting-
characters,
Like if they that's the ultimate like versus, right? Like
Well,
if they stood off
yeah,
against
yeah.
each other, what
As-
would happen?
as
in
we've
the
seen-
squared circle.
as we've seen,
If this was a
Are you gonna
WWE
mention-
wrestling
are you gonna
match,
bring
This
up
was a wrestling-
Freddy versus Jason?
no. I'm just
That
going to
movie's
say
awesome, by the way.
that
The movie is awesome,
If
yes.
they were as characters were to face off against each
Yeah.
other, they would just end up murdering each other over and over and over again, and they would keep coming back because that's what happens in those
Yeah.
movies.
yeah, but the initial like
But it would
if this
be,
was like a death match, if
Right.
this was okay.
I mean,
so
I think
I'm going to say Candyman would win.
okay,
And there's a very specific reason I would say that.
right,
Because all right, Freddy can only get you in sleep mode, right?
Right.
right.
That's his power. That's where his power lies, is if when you're asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But
Every-
Candyman, once you call Candyman, you're basically a dead person.
right.
Like, and he's in the real world at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
So what happens when people go back to Nightmare 1? What happens when she pulls Freddy into the real world? He loses all of his powers.
Mm-hmm.
She sets him on fire.
He just has a
kills
fingery
him.
glove.
So if you pulled Freddy into the real world with Candyman, Candyman would win. Guaranteed.
So
in my mind.
as a part
Well, I
one,
mean,
Because
you-
all his power
if
is
it was
gone.
a part one and done, you are correct. But they always come back.
They do always come back, but we're not
Hang on a
saying that.
second.
We're not saying that. We're saying
If we're talking
Like-
about him getting pulled into the real world and then having to fight, he did hold his own against Jason Voorhees pretty well in Freddy
mean,
vs.
that's
Jason.
true.
And that was a bullshit movie. I will say it right now. That was a very
How
bullshit movie.
I like
dare
that
you.
movie.
that. No,
I love that fucking
Ronnie,
movie.
Ronnie Yu took his little shitty dick and fucked that movie into the ground. Like I will.
I actually thought the movie was pretty bad.
I thought it was
shoulda-
awesome.
I
They should have
agree.
made Freddy vs. Jason between Friday Part 7 and Nightmare 6. I think it was. So Freddy's Dead. Like that movie should have been made a long time ago.
I'll agree with that. It did take
That
what
movie
felt
should have been
like
made a long time
30
ago.
fucking years to come
I
out.
love Freddy vs. Jason, but the way it was made was like Jason's afraid of water.
Yeah, 'cause
Come on, we've all seen Friday. We've seen all the Friday the 13th. He just
He
walks
always
in there.
comes out of water.
Yeah, I mean he's fine. He's fine.
Right.
But anyway-
let's
anyway,
go. That's
as far as
that's another video.
Candyman
That's another
versus
video.
Freddy goes,
That's another video.
I'm saying Candyman. I'm putting it on the table. That's
He says Candyman. I still say Freddy.
Yeah, I'm
chip.
still have to go with Freddy too. Now, granted, Candyman is a much more imposing looking figure,
Right.
He
but
looks a little buffer, except
think
for when he
Freddy's
takes off his
scarier.
jacket and he's a
No, I
skeleton
think
with bees on it.
He's got bees. In
I think Freddy is
He's got
scarier
bee
looking.
power.
bees in his rib cage.
This
But-
makes me want a fighting game
Like,
with
why-
all of these characters in it. He's so sick.
get on that shit, Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, NetherRealm Studios. We want all of
Yeah, I
the
want
fucking
fucking Candyman.
All the horror.
Yeah, all the horror icons. So we have what? We've got a Freddy, we've got a Candyman,
got-
and you said,
I'm gonna have to go with
Freddy.
Freddy.
what do you think?
You know, I walked in today saying Freddy's gonna fucking run away with this. Rabbit, you might have changed my mind because
I think it's a good point. I'm just
well,
saying.
because when does Candyman sleep? When does he take his little? When does he take his?
Yeah.
Candyman doesn't sleep. He
his
doesn't
little
have
naps?
to sleep.
Yeah. So if
Actually, in the first movie, he does. He is asleep kind of.
Well, So
Oh, yeah.
When he's like
Yeah,
laying
he's
there and then he
laying
opens his eyes.
Yeah,
and he's
he,
like,
So-
he does
I got you,
sleep.
bitch.
Goddammit.
I have
But,
seen
yeah.
I've seen enough nightmare movies. Like that's the thing is like, well, there's only one way to really beat Freddy. I'm gonna put you to sleep, and when you go to sleep, grab him. We're gonna wake you up. We're gonna hit you with a board
Right.
or splash
Yeah.
water on you, whatever.
Yeah.
pull him into the real world.
Yeah, pull him in the real world. And every time Freddy's such a little bitch.
Yeah.
He always comes in. He's like, well, I'm afraid now. So
Yeah, but you know what happens after you think you've won? He rips your mom through the front door. You know what I'm saying?
well, here's the thing.
That's
like-
true.
like-
That's true. But also somebody
both of
in
these
another city
characters-
can say Candyman 5 times and he's back.
Right,
Both
that's
of
true.
these
So,
figures
we're
are
not talking about
immortal or whatever. So I mean, even if you
Right.
killed them in the real world, then like
Okay,
they, you know,
so we're just gonna go ahead and wrap it up, and we're gonna say that it's
I think
a
that's
tie.
a draw.
Tie.
Yeah,
We
I
have
think
a
that's
draw, except for Freddie wins because it's my show, motherfuckers. Shit.
I don't believe it.
I just
okay,
kidding.
wait, no. Here's why Freddy wins. Here's why Freddy wins. Freddy's dead. Part 6, the final chapter.
Okay,
whatever.
go ahead.
He has the fucking power glove,
Oh,
and he can put Candyman in a
Does
video
he
game,
love
and he'll
the
say,
power glove?
"Now you're playing with power," and that's
Now
it.
you're playing
We're
with
done.
power, bitch.
Yeah,
I want to get this out while I'm thinking about it.
and there's a 3D sequence in
If,
the Nightmare
if we're
series.
just talking about them versus each other, not the movies, the characters.
Right, yeah.
I
Freddy versus
think-
Candyman.
I still think Freddy wins it because with his abilities, he's not just able to enter your dreams. Eventually, he gets to the point where he's able to cross into other dimensions.
Are you talking about that fucking kung fu shit he learned from Ronnie Yu and Freddy versus fucking Jason?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like in Wes Craven's
That's
New Nightmare.
racist.
He's basically able to come into the real world. He's not even in a movie anymore.
In a New
He's-
Nightmare, he does
Yeah,
come into
yeah.
the
Yeah.
real world. Yeah.
That's true.
Fun fact: A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th have always been in the same universe, cinematic universe
Right.
from the very beginning. So if you didn't know that, now you know.
Yep. Because what is it, the end of which Friday the 13th is it?
Jason Goes to Hell. with a
Yeah,
glove.
when the glove comes
Yeah.
up and pulls it into the dirt,
Because
pulls his mask in.
Yeah.
and that's just because
fucking
Wes
ending
Craven
movie
and
ever.
Clive Barker were really good friends,
There's one
and Sam Raimi. They were all in a trio together. They-
Sean Cunningham.
Yeah.
He's the Friday the 13th guy. Hopefully we get this shit resolved soon and we can have some new
yeah.
movies.
So the way
They make
I
their
see
own
it,
shit up,
the way I
so.
see it, anytime you put any of these people up against each other, like in Freddy versus Jason, the end is always going to have it hint at both of them
Right.
still being alive.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
They can never die.
They
can never die.
Freddy
Anyway,
versus
any way
Jason.
we talk
Jason
about
won,
it,
right?
that's what's going to happen.
Of course.
Even though Freddy has a little wink at the end.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Even though Freddy has a little wink, Jason won.
they can never die, but there can be a winner
Right.
initially.
That's
an
true.
initial winner.
That's true.
But yeah, they're never gonna die, of course.
Jason Voorhees was sent here by Jesus
'Cause you
Christ. That's all I'm saying.
You always got to leave room for that sequel, bro. You got to always got to leave room for that sequel.
All right, guys, if you liked
think
our
we're done.
video, please hit the like button.
Smash that button.
Leave us a comment down below. Who do you think would win, Candyman or Freddy?
Freddy.
I say Freddy too.
I'm going to say Jason to be, or Jason? I want to say Candyman to be contrarian.
Candyman.
Candyman. Anyways, NetherRealm Studios, make us a fighting game with all these motherfuckers in the same game. And Candyman could be like, bees. Hook up the butt. Anyways, I'm gonna make this a new thing to close the show. Make art, not fart.
See you later, nerd.
See you later, nerds.